Hey Italy, how do you plan on recreating the Roman Empire? Invade Greece? God damn it, Italy.
Ah, Italy. Known for your beautiful landscape, your rich culture, and lackluster performance during World War II. Italy has built up its reputation for being a joke when discussing World War II. And I would just like to preface this video by saying, the Italian people are a very strong, hardy group of men and women that were put into a bad situation during the war. The Italians are not incompetent or people to be taken as a joke, and the reason for their poor performance during World War II was mainly due to their poor leadership. I have nothing against Italians, and I respect them very much. Now, to bash their military during World War II. To start off with this tirade, we're going to discuss Italy's leadership during World War II. Mussolini's main goal was to recreate the Roman Empire and extend his fascist rule across Europe and northern Africa, so he pushed his country into a war they were not prepared for or willing to fight in. In the beginning, Mussolini was told to be patient by his associates, and that the Axis powers will rule everything eventually. It should also be known that Mussolini's associates only gained their positions due to political affiliations and loyalty to Mussolini, not due to military prowess. Mussolini ignored his high command, proceeding to begin Italy's invasion into Greece. This was a bad idea. A very bad idea. Italy was simply not ready for a war on the scale of World War II, partially due to Italy's involvement in wars in Spain and East Africa, and also due to how, at the time, Italy was more poor of a country compared to those who they were being aligned with. Now, to discuss their military. The Italian infantry was quite under-equipped compared to other militaries during World War II. Italian infantry divisions were short 15,000 contemporary artillery guns, but the Italian factories could only produce 8% of that number a year. If you're wondering, that is 12,000 a year. Ground forces suffered the most from supply shortages during the war compared to air and sea. In 1940, only a quarter of Italy's divisions were supplied with a sufficient amount of munitions and rations. And along with this, the Italian divisions were not motorized due to how the country did not have the industrial capacity to produce automotive parts. Italy had a small assortment of tanks throughout World War II, but we will only be focusing on two main tanks. We'll be starting off by talking about the CV-33. First of all, just look at this thing. Wow. The CV-33 only had twin 8mm machine guns and was used wherever the Italians fought. There was also a variant with a flamethrower on it. And to be honest, that sounds pretty terrifying, but not the most practical when they fought a lot of their battles in the desert with nothing to burn. The CV-33 was functional, but almost useless against anything with an anti-tank gun, basically any other tank, or a high-caliber rifle or machine gun. This means that a foot soldier with a larger-than-normal rifle could take out this big old piece of junk. Now, onto their main battle tank, the M13-40. As I previously stated, the M13-40 was the main battle tank of the Italians and was used throughout the entirety of the war. It was based off of good tank designs from the 1930s, which meant it was immediately outdated on its debut. It wasn't an awful tank, and even boasted a 47mm anti-tank gun, but it was simply second-rate compared to who they were going against, mainly British tanks. I would continue, but you get the point. Their tanks were poor quality and outdated, mostly outperformed by anything they came against. Italy designed smaller tanks not only to decrease costs of production, but also due to how Italian commanders were expecting another war like World War I, where they fought in rough mountainous terrain. So smaller tanks, in their eyes, were more practical for maneuvering. And then they invaded the desert, which is very flat. Smart. The Italian handguns were not bad, actually. The pride and joy of Italian pistols were those produced by Beretta, such as the Beretta M1934, which was not only the preferred handgun of the Italian military, but many German soldiers used this weapon as well, after Germany took over arms production in Italy. There was also the Glicenti M1910, that most Italian soldiers did not like and considered it a second-rate pistol. Italian rifles, on the other hand, were not great. Most rifles were based off of the Carcano M1891, which was a pre-World War I era rifle using outdated ammunition. This said outdated ammunition was used throughout the entirety of World War II, just to mention. Italian submachine guns were one of the best parts of their military due to the Beretta M1938 submachine gun. The reason this firearm was so good was due to its high-quality materials and finishing, along with all parts being made out of machined steel. The high quality caused little to no jamming, but due to the price to produce the M1938, the Italian military started to produce lesser quality submachine guns, such as the M1938-42, which was still very functional but not as high quality. Now, the Italian light machine guns. Oh boy, here we go. One example to bring up is the Beretta M1913 light machine gun. It was quite awkward to use and had numerous flaws, such as its violent recoil, which caused terrible accuracy. Another unbelievably awkward part of the weapon was its folding magazine that was fed by zipper clips that could not be removed until it was out of ammo. It was also found that if the folding magazine broke, which it occasionally did, the entire gun was useless. Another example of poor quality light machine gun was the Fiat Rivelli M1914-35, which was originally a World War I style light machine gun, which was then altered to be air-cooled instead of water-cooled and to be belt-fed. It was found that this firearm was no better than its World War I variant and caused the Italian infantrymen to be at quite the disadvantage. The Italian air power was kind of a joke. I say this with no intent to offend, but the Italian Air Force was the worst part of their military by far. Similar to the infantry using World War I era weapons, the Italian pilots were forced to use outdated airplanes to fight the most advanced form of fighter planes at the time. By outdated, I mean the Italian Air Force were literally using biplanes, even up until the end of the war. In September of 1939, it was even found that less than half of Italy's aircraft were operational. So it's easy to say that the Air Force was subpar, to say the least. On the opposite side of the spectrum, the Italian Navy was the best part of their military, sort of. Its presence in the Mediterranean Sea was imposing, for its destroyers, submarines, and torpedo boats outnumbered Britain's and France in the region. Its main drawback was that Italy did not have enough sources of fuel to use its navy outside of the Mediterranean, let alone far away from Italy itself. And it also lacked the proper air support compared to who Italy was going against. The Italian military men did the best they could with what they had, and sadly what they had was outdated equipment and a fascist leader who wanted more land for a country that hated him. The reasons for Italy doing so poorly during World War II can be summed up as poor leadership, low resources, an uninspired nation, and poorly developed equipment. All of these combined created a nation that was simply not ready for a war on the scale of World War II.